My name doesn't matter much for this story, but I'll give you the basics. I was 26, working medical billing at a regional hospital, and I'd moved to town about 6 weeks before any of this happened. Small place, one stoplight, one grocery store, the kind of town where everybody already knew everybody except me. I took the job because it paid better than anything back home, and because the hospital was hiring for the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., processing insurance claims and admissions paperwork while the rest of the building ran on skeleton crew. I parked in the attached garage every night. Level 3, same spot, close to the stairwell because the elevator took forever and smelled like old pennies. My car was a gray 2015 Corolla with a cracked side mirror I kept meaning to fix. The garage had those long fluorescent tubes bolted to the ceiling, half of them flickering, and concrete pillars spaced out every 20 feet or so. Security cameras up in the corners, little red lights blinking. I never thought twice about walking to my car at 7 a.m. Sun was usually already up by then anyway. The first time I noticed him was a Tuesday. I was walking to my car after my shift, a little after 7, and there was a man standing by the stairwell door on level 2, one floor below mine, just standing there. Gray zip-up jacket, dark pants, work boots, not doing anything, not walking anywhere, just standing, facing the wall like he was reading something on it, except there was nothing on that wall. I didn't think much of it. Hospitals get all kinds of people wandering around at strange hours, family members waiting on news, people who can't sleep because someone they love is in the ICU. I figured he was one of those. Grief does strange things to people. Maybe he just needed air and ended up in the garage instead of outside. Thursday, same week, I saw him again, same jacket. This time he was on my level, level 3, standing near the pillar closest to the stairwell entrance, maybe 30 feet from my car. Still facing away from me, still not moving. I remember slowing down a little, my keys already out, thumb on the fob. I told myself it was a coincidence. Small hospital, small town. Maybe he had a relative admitted for a few days, and this was just where he came to get away from the waiting room. People develop habits during hard weeks. I'd read about that, grief routines. It made sense to me at the time, or at least it made enough sense that I could keep walking to my car without my hands shaking. The following Monday I saw him a third time, and that's when it stopped making sense. He was on level 3 again, but closer now, maybe 15 feet from my driver's side door, standing between two parked cars that weren't his. And this time, when I clicked my fob and the headlights flashed, he turned his head, not his whole body, just his head, slow, toward the sound. I got in my car fast, locked the doors before I even had the key in the ignition. I sat there for a second, breathing, watching him in the rear view. He didn't move again, didn't walk toward the car, didn't walk away. Just stood there with his head still turned in my direction until I pulled out of the spot. And even then, in the mirror, I swear he tracked the car with his eyes the whole way to the exit ramp. I told a coworker about it the next night, a nurse named Denise who'd worked there almost 15 years. She said she'd never heard of anyone matching that description, no regular visitor, no vagrant the security guys had flagged. She said the garage had cameras on every level, and if someone was loitering like that, security would have picked it up and said something. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. It just meant nobody official had seen him but me. For the next 4 nights, nothing, no sign of him. I started to relax a little, started thinking maybe he'd moved on, whatever his situation was. Then on the 5th night, a Friday, I came out to the garage at 7:05 a.m., and he was standing directly beside my car, not near it, beside it, close enough to touch the door handle, facing the driver's side window like he was waiting for me to walk up to it. I stopped maybe 40 feet away, my legs just locked. I remember my heart doing this hard, uneven thing in my chest, and for a second I couldn't figure out if I should run back inside or keep walking toward the car like nothing was wrong. He was an older man, maybe mid-40s, average height, average build. Nothing about him should have been frightening on paper. Gray zip-up jacket, same one every time. Dark jeans, brown work boots with the laces frayed at the ends. Short hair, graying at the sides. He had his hands down at his sides, not in his pockets, just hanging there. and he was looking at my car door with this flat, patient expression, like he'd been standing there a long time and didn't mind waiting longer. I didn't confront him. I didn't say anything clever or brave. I turned around and walked back toward the stairwell door as fast as I could without breaking into a full run, because some part of my brain still wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding I could walk away from calmly. I got through the door, went straight to the security desk on the first floor, and told the guard on duty there was a man in the level 3 garage standing next to my car who wasn't supposed to be there. He walked up with me. By the time we got back to level 3, my car was exactly where I'd left it. No one beside it, no one on the level at all. We checked the stairwell, checked behind the pillars, checked the ramp down to level 2. Nothing. The guard pulled up the camera footage on his radio right there in the garage, scrubbing back 10 minutes. The footage showed my car parked, empty spot beside it, and then me walking up alone. No man, nowhere on any angle. Didn't go back to that garage again except with someone walking beside me, and eventually I asked to switch to a day shift, even though it meant a pay cut. The hospital transferred me without much of a question, which in a small town, I've learned since, usually means somebody already knows something they're not saying. About 2 months after I switched shifts, Denise mentioned, almost in passing, that a maintenance worker who used to work at the hospital years back, before the garage was even built out to 3 levels, used to wear the exact same gray zip-up jacket as part of his uniform. She said he'd died in a fall on the site during construction, sometime in the 90s, before either of us had ever set foot in that town. I never asked her his name. I'm still not sure I want to know it. I was 24 when I worked nights at a distribution center off Route 9, the kind of place that ships out packages 24 hours a day and never really turns the lights off. My shift ran from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., stocking pallets and running a forklift for the last 2 hours because we were short-staffed. By the time I clocked out, it was always somewhere between 11:05 and 11:20, depending on how long the line was at the badge scanner. The employee parking was a 5-level concrete garage across the street, connected to the warehouse by a covered walkway. I parked on level 4 because it was closest to the stairwell that led out near my department. My car was a 2014 Civic with a cracked side mirror I kept meaning to fix. Most nights I walked out with a guy named Danny from receiving, but that week he'd switched to days, so I was walking alone. It was a Tuesday, middle of October, cold enough that I could see my breath in the stairwell. I came out onto level 4 around 11:15 and started toward my car, maybe 40 feet away under a flickering light that had been out half the month. That's when I noticed someone standing by the concrete pillar 2 rows over, on level 3, visible through the open side of the garage. Just standing there, not walking to a car, not on their phone, facing my direction. I didn't think much of it. People wait for rides at that garage all the time. Night shift guys waiting on a wife or a girlfriend. Guys smoking, because they can't smoke inside. I gave a half wave, the kind you give a stranger to say, "I see you, we're both just here," and kept walking. He didn't wave back. I figured he didn't see me, or didn't care, and I got in my car and drove home. I didn't think about it again until Thursday. Same time, almost exactly, 11:18. I remember because I checked my phone when I came out of the stairwell. And there he was again. Same pillar, same level 3, same stillness. Same gray hoodie, hood down, hands at his sides. I told myself it was a coincidence. Some guys work the same schedule I do, wait for the same shuttle, whatever. Maybe he worked in the warehouse too and I just didn't recognize him because we were in different departments. That's a big building. 400 people on a shift. I told myself that a lot of things looked like patterns if you were tired enough, and I was always tired by 11 p.m. I didn't wave that time. I just walked faster to my car. The next week, it happened 3 more times. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Always around the same time. Always level 3, always that pillar, and each time when I checked he was already looking my direction, like he'd been waiting for me to walk out. On Friday, I did something different. I stopped and looked back at him for a few seconds instead of just walking past. He didn't move. He didn't look away. He just stood there with his hands loose at his sides, watching me the way you'd watch a TV you weren't really interested in. That night I mentioned it to my coworker Priya at break. She laughed it off at first, said the garage was creepy, everybody said so, half the lights didn't work, of course some weirdo hangs out there. But then she said something that stuck with me. She said, "Level 3's closed off though. They shut that level for repaving like 2 months ago. Nobody's supposed to be parked there." I hadn't noticed that. I never parked on 3, so I never paid attention to the orange barrels blocking the ramp. But she was right. When I thought back on it, I couldn't remember seeing a single car on that level, any of those nights. Just concrete, and him. That Sunday, I decided I was going to actually go look. I don't totally know why. Some mix of annoyance and needing to prove to myself it was nothing. A guy on his break, a security contractor, something boring. I came out of the stairwell at 11:16, saw him in his usual spot, and instead of turning toward my car, I walked to the edge of level 4, where you can see down onto level 3 through the gap in the barrier wall. He was closer than usual. Not by the pillar this time, maybe 15 feet from the barrier, almost directly below me. I could see him clearly under the sodium lights. A white man, somewhere in his 40s or 50s, gray hoodie zipped to the collar, dark jeans, work boots, no phone, no bag, nothing in his hands. His face was just ordinary. That's what got me actually, more than anything dramatic would have. He didn't look deranged. He looked like someone's dad. Tired eyes, a few days of gray stubble, mouth in a flat line, and he was looking straight up at me. I said, "Hey, can I help you with something?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. He didn't answer. He tilted his head slightly, like he was considering the question, and then he started walking toward the ramp that led up to level 4, toward me. That's when I ran. Not toward my car. The stairwell was closer, and it looped back down toward the walkway and the building, where there were still people. I hit the stairwell door and took the steps 2 at a time, and I could hear a door somewhere below me open and shut, though I couldn't have told you if it was him or an echo of my own footsteps bouncing off the concrete. My heart was going so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I came out on the ground level right by the walkway, and I didn't stop until I was back inside the building, badge scanner beeping behind me, under fluorescent light, next to a security guard named Ellis, who looked at me like I'd seen a ghost. I told him what happened. He radioed it in, walked me out to my car himself with a flashlight, checked the back seat before I got in. The garage was empty. No gray hoodie, no footsteps, nothing on level 3 but orange barrels and wet concrete from a section they'd repoured that week. I filed a report. The property company pulled the garage cameras. That's when Ellis told me something that made the hair stand up on my arms. Level 3's cameras had been down for repairs since the paving started, almost 6 weeks earlier. No footage existed for any of the nights I described, not one frame. They added extra lighting after that, and for a while a guard walked employees to their cars if they asked. I asked, every night, for the rest of that year. I never saw him again, but about 4 months later, doing a routine audit, the security office found something in the access logs that they couldn't explain and never really tried to. My badge, the one clipped to my belt the entire time, the one I never lost, never lent out, never even set down, had scanned into the level 3 stairwell door at 11:04 p.m. on that first Tuesday in October, 11 minutes before I clocked out for the night. I was 26, and my boyfriend Marcus and I had been together about 5 months when we took our first trip together, a long weekend in Savannah. We stayed at a small boutique place on Bay Street, the kind with a courtyard and a name like the Marlowe House. Valet was full when we got there Friday night, so the front desk pointed us to a public parking garage 2 blocks over on Bryan Street, 6 levels, the kind of structure that's mostly used by office workers during the day and sits close to empty after dark. We ended up parking there the whole weekend, since it was cheaper than the hotel's overnight rate. Saturday night we went out to a late dinner, then a bar a few blocks past that, and didn't head back to the garage until almost 12:40 a.m. We were on level 4, near the far corner by the stairwell, under lighting that was decent, but spaced out enough that there were long stretches of shadow between the fixtures. We got out of the elevator and started walking toward the car, and that's when I heard it, my name, just once, low, almost under someone's breath. I stopped walking. Marcus asked what was wrong, and I said, "Did you hear that?" He hadn't. I told him it sounded like someone said my name. He laughed a little and said it was probably an echo off the concrete, somebody talking on their phone a level up or down. Sound does weird things in those garages, bouncing off every hard surface, carrying way farther than you'd think. I told myself that made sense. I've misheard things before. A fan, a car engine, wind through a stairwell door propped open. I let it go and we kept walking. We heard it again about 30 feet from the car. This time it wasn't just my name. It was my name and then Marcus's, said right after, low and close, like someone standing near enough to whisper directly into your ear canal. Neither of us said anything for a second. Marcus turned in a full circle, looking at the rows of parked cars, the concrete pillars, the stairwell door. Nobody there. He said maybe it was a couple somewhere near us, having a conversation, and our brains just filled in familiar-sounding words. People do that. Pareidolia, but for sound instead of faces. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Then it said something that made both of our names not matter anymore. It said, clear as anything, "You left the lamp on again." That was a thing I actually said to Marcus in our hotel room 40 minutes earlier, right before we left for dinner. A stupid throwaway comment about the lamp on his side of the bed. Nobody else had been in that room. Nobody else could have heard it. Marcus's face changed. He grabbed my hand, and we stood there in the middle of the garage, dead still, listening. There was nothing for maybe 10 seconds. Then, from somewhere off to our left, past a support pillar, we heard it laugh. Not a Scream movie cackle. A short, dry, almost embarrassed-sounding laugh, like someone had just been caught doing something they shouldn't. We should have gone straight to the car. I know that now. But Marcus is the type who has to know, and I was too rattled to argue with him, so we went toward the sound instead, past the pillar, toward a door at the end of the row marked security, in faded stenciled letters, half covered by a sheet of plywood someone had nailed up crooked. The plywood had been pried back at one corner, enough for a person to slip through. Marcus pushed it further, and we looked into what used to be a security booth, a narrow room with a dead monitor bank, a rolling chair with the stuffing coming out of one arm, and a metal shelf holding a mess of old cables, a handheld CB radio, and what looked like a paging system, the kind that used to run to speakers all over old garages before everything went digital. Half the wires were disconnected, hanging loose, half weren't. Sitting on the shelf next to the radio was a spiral notebook, swollen with damp, the cover long gone. Marcus flipped it open with one finger. Pages of handwriting, different pens, some entries just a date and a time, others longer, phrases, single lines, things that read like they'd been overheard. I told her he loved her, second level, 11 p.m. Arguing about money, Black Tahoe. Dozens of pages of it, going back what looked like years. That's when we heard footsteps on the stairs behind the booth door. Slow, unhurried, coming up. Marcus dropped the notebook and grabbed my arm, and we ran. Out through the plywood gap, down the row, straight for the car, not looking back until we were both inside with the doors locked. I was fumbling so bad I dropped my phone twice trying to call 911. 2 patrol officers met us in the garage about 15 minutes later. They checked the booth, found it empty, said the paging system had been decommissioned when the garage was renovated 11 years earlier, and technically nobody should have had access to that room at all. The plywood was supposed to be screwed down, not just nailed. They took the notebook as evidence, along with our statement, and walked us to our car a second time before we left. The hotel gave us a different set of keys after that. We didn't go back to that garage again that weekend. We paid the valet rate for the last night, even though it was almost double what we'd budgeted. About 2 weeks after we got home, an officer from Savannah PD called Marcus to follow up. They hadn't found any prints on the booth door or the radio equipment worth running, and the notebook, it turned out, had over 60 separate entries just for that month, October, more than one a night on some days. They couldn't match the handwriting to any employee who'd ever worked in that garage. The last entry in the book, though, the one closest to the front, freshest ink, was a date and a time. It read, "Left the lamp on again," followed by a time, 12:01 a.m., 40 minutes before I said it out loud in our hotel room.